Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you guys today? How's everything going? How's your weekend? Good, I hope, right? Um, so I did a video a few days ago and I told you new venue, new judge, right? So I'm just here to bring you like this quick update on what's going on in the Bryan Kohberger case. Again, Judge, he approved the motion to have the change of venue where the case is now being changed. The case is moving from Latah County to Idaho County in Boise. And there's a new judge assigned, right? So let's talk about it. I'm using an article from CNN.com. It's titled Bryan Kohberger's Murder Trial in the Idaho Student Killings Will Be Moved to Boise. This article is dated September 12, 2024, and it's written by Joe Sutton and Eric Levinson. The trial against Bryan Kohberger, the man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students in 2022, will be moved to the county surrounding the state capital of Boise, the Idaho Supreme Court ruled on Thursday. District Judge Steve Hippler will take on the case in Idaho County, the court said. Kohberger will be transferred forthwith to the custody of the Idaho County Sheriff, the court ruled. So, to put all of this in a nutshell, after Judge John Judge approved the motion to change the venue, the Idaho Supreme Court, they came in, they immediately reassigned the case. That means that Mr. Kohberger is going to be transported from Latah County to Idaho County. And this is the largest city in the state of Idaho that's going to be Boise. So they're going to have those resources that's needed, the staff, the housing, the food, everything that was needed. That Latah County being a smaller population, they just don't have those resources to support a larger trial, bigger courtroom, media, etc., etc. Now, of course, as I said in my last video, I'm sure that they did consider the victims' families, but overall, you have to make sure that that defendant is receiving a fair trial. And that standard is low. If there's any bias, if there's any prejudice, you want to change that venue. You want to allow him to receive a jury and seat a jury that's not going to be prejudicial, towards the defendant. So the trial has been moved to Idaho County, and now we have a new judge that's assigned. Is he going to be different from John Judge? I think the challenge was things were moving pretty slow. It was taking a lot of time. Sometimes there was some outbursts in the courtroom. I felt like at times, hey, make a decision, Judge. You have the power, you have the ability, and things kind of went on for a very long time. And now we're almost 2 years in, and the trial is now set for tentatively, because I'm going to say tentatively, because they have to consider now the court schedule and the court docket in this new county, Idaho County. So it's tentatively scheduled to begin in June of 2025, and it's estimated to last approximately 3 months, okay? So Idaho County is the most populous in the state with about 525,000 residents. more than 10 times larger in population than Latah County, according to the U.S. Census. Latah County, the original slated venue for the trial, is more than 200 miles north of Ada County, with both along Idaho's western border. So they did provide a map, and I wanted to share that map so you can kind of see the distance. I think the difficulty here is going to be for the family members. That distance may be hard for them because they will have to travel possibly hours to get to Ada County. So I'm sharing my screen now. This is a map that was provided in the CNN article, and you can see here where Latah County is, and then the distance to Boise in Ada County. It's quite a few hours, right? Maybe at least 3 hours. So again, just want you to see that, see what we're looking at as far as the distance. So I'm gonna continue with the article. The latest development comes days after the previous judge, John Judge of Latah County, approved the defense's motion to move Kohberger's upcoming murder trial due to concerns that the local community in Moscow was prejudiced against him. Considering the undisputed evidence presented by the defense, the extreme nature of the news coverage in this case, and the smaller population in Latah County, the defense has met the rather low standard of demonstrating reasonable likelihood that prejudicial news coverage will compromise a fair trial in Latah County, the judge wrote in the order Monday. The judge also highlighted logistical issues with holding the trial in Latah County, noting there were not enough county sheriff deputies, court clerks, or courthouse space to accommodate such a big trial. That decision did not specify a new trial location. Instead, judge referred the case to an administrative director of the courts, and the state Supreme Court then assigned the new venue and judge in Thursday's ruling. The defense had asked that the trial be moved to Boise, the capital and largest city in Idaho. Two other recent high-profile Idaho cases, the murder trials of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, were similarly moved to Boise. The ruling Thursday is part of the long and winding road since four University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapman, Zana Kernodle, and Madison Mogan, were fatally stabbed in the overnight hours of November 13th, 2022, at a home just off the school's main campus in Moscow. Kohberger, a Washington State University graduate student in criminology, was arrested in the killings on December 30th, 2022, in his home state of Pennsylvania. Investigators connected him to a white vehicle seen near the killings. DNA recovered from a tan leather knife sheath found in the home, and his cell phone location data, according to court documents. A not guilty plea was entered on his behalf last year, and his attorneys have indicated he intends to present an alibi as part of his defense. Prosecutors have said they will seek the death penalty. The progression of the case has been slowed by a series of pretrial motions and hearings related to the death penalty, a gag order, the use of investigative genetic genealogy, and Kohberger's proposed alibi. Several of the issues have still not been resolved. The trial is expected to begin in June of 2025 and last about 3 months. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to close this out. And I want to say that I'm interested in knowing more about the new judge that's been appointed. Is he anything like John Judge? I always want there to be a balance, there to be fairness, there to be consideration for both the prosecution and the defense. And now that the trial has been moved out of Latah County, this small knit community where people know each other, they have familiarity, they may have had some legal experience being in such a small area. Now we're going into a larger community. They're not going to have the same jury pool where, people may know each other, whereas I think the jury pool would be a lot larger since the population is 10 times larger. And I also feel like there is some distance. So in Moscow, there was a saturation of media news coverage also across the United States, but in the area where the murders occurred, I'm sure on a daily basis there was just an influx of coverage on the Idaho 4 murders, whereas possibly and hopefully in Boise being a larger city, maybe people will not be as familiar with the case, as familiar with the details and the news coverage, and also all of the leaks and misinformation and things that were just not true. Had it not been for the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, to come out and say Bryan Kohberger did not stalk the girls, people would still possibly believe that he did. I did a video back, I don't know, sometime last year in 2023, I believe, and I talked about just using the cell phone data and how the GPS work and with the satellites and how you know the information in the PCA of Brett Payne showed that the information wasn't reliable. You can't just how can I put this? You can't just allow misinformation to go on the way it's gone on. And in their own PCA, to me, it showed that the information wasn't reliable. Please check that video out. So I had some concerns about saying that Bryan Kohberger was stalking the victims. And I was concerned about that GPS tracking and placing him and saying that he was at the property 12 times. Well, what does that mean specifically? What is the distance? What is the location? Was he at the house? Was he in the house? Was he pinging off a cell phone? Like all of that matters. The distance matters. So that was my concern. And rightfully so, because there was information out there that Kaylee had a stalker. Kaylee Goncalves had a stalker. So I was concerned about that because that was giving more credence to the idea that Bryan Kohberger was the stalker. And there had been all kind of incorrect information out saying that, oh, he was following the girls and on social media and things like that, which was found to not be true. Those accounts were set up after his arrest. So we just have a lot of things that need to be debunked, and moving it to a new county, a larger county, hopefully people are not as prejudiced and have not made a decision about guilt or innocence, and that they're willing to listen to both sides, the prosecution and the defense, because my question is, where is the evidence? Where is it? If he wasn't stalking the victims, if that was not true, if he wasn't at the property, placed at the property 1122 King Road, and that's not true, then you have to look at the other evidence, the white Elantra. And again, I showed you a video. There was a police vehicle at the band field, right, very close to 1122 King Road the Saturday or early morning hours of Sunday, November 13th, 2022, right next to King Road, right next to the murder house. So was the make, model, color similar of this white Elantra, whatever year? So things like that. And again, I've already talked about in a separate video, about the transfer DNA, how easy it is to transfer DNA, that this is just something that it could easily be transferred from touching an object and then touching something else. So I want to know, and I'm interested to know when the trial starts, if there is a trial. As I've always said, will there be a trial? If. Because going forward with this new judge, Is this new judge going to hone in on all of the issues? I have literally done video after video. I have a collection of video of all of the issues, all of the changes, all of the things that have come in line, changes made to appear to make it seem that Bryan Kohberger is the assailant, that he is connected, and he can be placed at this crime scene. And if there is an eyewitness, why aren't they saying it's Bryan Kohberger? Again, I've talked about some of the language in the PCA. Ironclad in black. Nobody that's young is going to talk like that. That's police type language. Also, um, the I am here to help you. That's like a law enforcement or ambulatory services. That's how they talk. I'm here to help you. I'm here to assist you. You know, it's just it's very telling that PCA and how they don't even want to use their own PCA. And did they use the information contained to get the instead of going to the preliminary hearing, they went to a federal grand jury. Did they use some of that information to get an indictment of Bryan Kohberger? Because you can't turn around and say, well, I'm not using any of that. Because now they're saying, well, we're not going to use that DNA on the knife sheath. Well, why not? Why can't you show how you got it, what system you use, when, dates? Everything is not dated, which is not professional. Shouldn't really be allowed if you don't know when you got something or how you got something. At some point, this case is going to go to trial, and your case is going to, the facts, the evidence, the documentation, the experts are going to have to testify at some point. And you better be ready, because guess what? If Bryan Kohberger is the killer or one of the killers, you got one shot. There's no double jeopardy. You can't try him over and over again. Now, what the prosecutor could do, he could charge him for the death of Kaylee Goncalves first. If that doesn't work, then Madison Mogen next, and Ethan Chat. He could do four shots, but that's very costly. So most courts want to do all of the victims in one case, one charging, versus try Mr. Kohberger each time for each individual death. So I guess that's something that they can consider, but I'm very interested to know what other strong evidence, because if the PCA contained the strongest evidence, this eyewitness testimony, this information about the white Elantra driving around, this information or evidence about the knife sheath being left behind. I never believed the knife sheath, and I wish I could just talk more freely, but trust me, if this crime scene was very violent, you have the victims being stabbed multiple times, you have some victims that are fighting back, they're taking defensive wounds, that sheath would have been covered in blood. And it's highly likely that the assailant or assailants or suspects or a suspect, they were injured in that attack. And again, there's so many questions, like I could go on and on and on, and I'm kind of like getting away from my subject matter, but there is a lot. And I want to know the background a little bit of the judge, how he's going to handle these motions, these issues, all of these things, the evidence. Some of the expert witnesses, how they handled them, who's going to be allowed to testify, contradicting witnesses' statements. I am interested to know the witness list, where is Dylan Mortensen, where is Bethany Funk, the alleged surviving roommates in this witness list. Are some of the victims' parents going to be witnesses? Because from some of the things that I have been watching unfold with some of the victims' parents, some of the statements they have made, how they have released details about the crime scene and the murders and the victims, will that even be allowed? Have they tainted a possible jury with their statements prior to trial? Will they even be allowed to testify because of the leaks, because of the statements, because of possible jury tampering, etc., obstruction of justice, etc.? I do have some compassion for the victims' families, um, and I hope that those type of things stop, especially as they're moving forward in a new county. Please do not bring those behaviors, actions into the new county. Um, I just don't want to see that go any further, and I'll just leave it there. So, yeah, I want to share some information about the new judge that's assigned because I wanted to know, hey, what can we learn about Judge Steve Hippler? So I want to show you a picture of him. So let me share my screen, and I will look. Oh, I have a comment. Let me check the comment first. I think Judge Stephen Hippler will be way more effective than Judge John Judge. Thank you, Chick Bait. Um, my hope is that Judge Hippler, I want him to be fair. I want him to have a balanced approach. I do not feel that the prosecution and defense needed to agree on everything. It was as if Judge wanted them to uh, mediate things and come to an agreement versus him have to make a ruling, a decision on major issues. Um, I don't know if it's always going to work like that. So I am interested to know how Judge Hippler will proceed, how his etiquette will be, how when um, issues come up and there's time to make statements, that it will not come from an emotional place, that will come from a place of the law, because I feel that not only should the defense be working to uphold Bryan Kohberger's rights, his constitutional rights, I feel the prosecution also has to acknowledge and work on that as well and not violate his constitutional rights. So I'm looking for Judge Hippler to be more vocal about some of the interactions and how things are handled. Also, with the scheduling, it had been times, and this is why I don't talk a lot about uh, the court appearances and the motions. It would be times where a hearing would be scheduled. So there would be a hearing scheduled about the hearing, and then they would appear in court, they would talk about the hearing, and then nothing would be resolved, and there would be no orders issued. There would be no decisions made. And then they would say, well, we will revisit this and we're going to have another hearing about the hearing, and motions weren't being decided. There were a lot of open issues that went on and on and on. And I would be watching court and I would just feel frustrated at times because I'm not saying that this was an intentional delay, but there was definitely times where it felt like, okay, they're now scheduling another hearing about this hearing to bring up the same issue again. And I also felt frustrated when there was clear times when evidence was brought up, not sharing certain evidence, asking for evidence for months, motion after motion after motion after motion. And when the evidence was not provided, there was no accountability, there was no uh, action by the judge to reprimand the prosecution about those things. They would say, well, we don't feel we should have to turn it over. Well, it's already been stated that you would and you didn't, or that time frame came and passed. So there was really no accountability, and there was no way that he was really chastising them about that. It would just go on and on and on and on and on. And again, now we're approaching 2 years, and that's if there will be able to be a June 2025 trial start date. So I agree with you. I hope that Judge Hippler is more effective, that he's more vocal and clear and concise, and that things will not be allowed to kind of go on and on, because I cannot imagine being um, one of the victim's family members and attending some of these hearings, and you're not seeing any progress. Thank you for that comment. And then you said, seems more professional, in my opinion, is going to be better than Latah County. Um, that is my hope. Um, there were times where I think I brought this up before. The defense was asking about some evidence. It related to the DNA male profiles, and they were asking, we want that information. We want to know about those profiles. They were unknown DNA, but they were male. So, did you ever process that to find out who the DNA belonged to? And I saw for myself the prosecution, they got up there and they act like they didn't know anything about, like, what are you talking about? And we've given you all of the evidence. We have no knowledge of what you're talking about. And the crazy thing was, they actually put in the record that there were male DNA that was unknown. They just didn't process it. So they felt like, well, because we didn't process it, we don't have to turn it over, we don't have to give it to you. No, process the evidence. Don't you want to know who that DNA belonged to? And I thought, hey, if you only have less than 10 DNA profiles, that's amazing, because when I watched the videos of 1122 King Road, there were tons of people in that house, like touching everything. So, like, 2 or 3 unknown male DNAs, you know, is it relevant? Were those DNA profiles found in blood on the victim in a defensive way? I don't know. We don't know. But there was a reason why the defense kept asking for this information, and they really stood up like indignant, like, I don't know what you talking about. Like, we're so tired of this. So, yeah, I hope that that does not continue. I hope that it is more professional, more respectful, and definitely moves the process on. She says, exactly, were they cherry picking what evidence to use? I wonder. You know what? Um, I am, I'll try to say this like in a soft way. I am extremely concerned about what we're deeming evidence, because if the PCA, and let me grab the PCA, I have it here. Let me grab the PCA for a second. When I look through Brett Payne's PCA, and I started thinking about what is evidence, like, what are the main issues in the Bryan Kohberger case. I really started honing in on, as I've kind of said before, you have the eyewitness testimony of someone walking past. Um, I really, really wish we would have had a preliminary hearing to cross-examine both alive roommates, to hear it from them, what their experiences were, what they saw, what they heard, what they did. Again, we've heard things that have been leaked out about the text messaging, etc. We don't know, but a big piece is that eyewitness testimony. And I did a video on eyewitness testimony, how unreliable it is, how things can appear to be one way, but in fact, they're not. So, hearing from both Bethany Funk and Dylan Morrison, moreover, I'm going to do 3 videos. I have them already set up. And the things that I'm going to share. I've already shared, but I'm going to go a little bit more in detail, talk about them a little bit more. It's very shocking. Um, it blows this case out of the water. And listen, I try not to, well, in the beginning, I was trying not to tear the case apart against Bryan Kohberger, but the more time I had, the more time I could, you know, think about the case, think about the evidence, think about what happened, think logically, apply reasoning, go over the evidence. You know, this case here, I can see why Judge kind of backed out of it. This case is going to be explosive for a lot of reasons, and not just what we know. It's going to be all the things we don't know. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's so much stuff that I don't bring to this platform that I have heard, I saw, I watched with my own eyes, and I don't bring it here even though I review it, I watch it. That's part of being an investigator. That's a part of doing your due diligence, learning, collecting information, evidence, reviewing it. So even though I don't bring it here, it blows my mind from the things that I have seen, the theories that are out there. I don't know what is going to be presented as evidence. I mean, we have this PCA, and I can tell you what they feel is evidence, but there's a whole nother set of facts, video, witnesses that aren't in here. And when I tell you there's a whole nother, there's multiple possibilities of what could have happened to Zayna, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie that I don't even discuss. When I set my collection out, I based it off of what was known in the media, what had been discussed in court, and I went through all of the evidence and I used my own thoughts. I used what was possible. I used the crime scene. I used the information in a PCA, and that's how I came up to that mini collection where I said, I think a police officer possibly could have killed the Idaho 4. And people were telling me crazy things like, it's impossible. Oh, no, it's not likely, no way. Listen, I have information that supports really two different theories. I don't talk about it. I mean, I can say it, but I'm not going to bring it on the platform. But some people really believe that the reason we don't know what happened in the hours between 9 p.m. and about 2 a.m. with Ethan and Zayna, we don't know where they were. I have a whole video that I'm going to talk about. I still to this day, I have no idea where they were. But there's video, there's information out there that says that Ethan and Zayna, that they were killed, not in the murder house, not at 1122 King Road. There's information that Ethan was physically attacked. There's information that Ethan may have died from a drug overdose. I don't know if any of that is true. I don't pretend to present myself as someone that was there or have the knowledge that's in the know. I can only tell you what reputable information I found, and then that's what I present here. But all of the other stuff, like all of these other theories that have some supporting documentation, video, etc., they say differently. They say that the stabbing idea is really not what happened. And I promise you, I swear on my life that I saw a video about June or July of 2023 where it was purporting that Kaylee and Maddie were unalive by police officers. And I didn't believe it. I did not believe the video. I watched it. I didn't think 5 seconds about it. I watched it. I dumped it out of my brain. The only reason it came back to me, and that's part of my next 3 videos, is the Kaylee and Maddie video. If I did not see that police officer take a picture of Kaylee's ID behind the 1122 King Road house, all of this happened within months of the murders. And if I did not hear for myself, it took me so long to find the video. I've just found the video in the last 30 days because I watched it and I didn't think about it anymore. I didn't put it together. When I did my series, I didn't have everything because I watched thousands of videos. I've read thousands of papers, articles, to come before you with facts, with concrete information. I can't say they were facts. I can't guarantee anything 100%, but information that I would say is vetted, is pretty concrete, is been in the news, etc. So I really feel like when the trial comes next year, if it comes next year, or if there is a trial, that trial is going to be a firecracker. I don't know what to say about this PCA because there's so much other information that has nothing to do with this PCA. Everything I'm talking about has nothing to do with Bryan Kohberger. There's no connection, zero. I don't know. Can you see that? Zero connection to Bryan Kohberger. All of the things that I have been researching, finding, investigating about, not one thing has ever brought up the name connection to a Bryan Kohberger. You know what everything has led to? And I'm just being honest. I'm raw right now because I have to be truthful. Everything has said that this murder, it really was within this community. It was not a quiet murder. People knew about it. It is connected to organizations, and the roommates know. And it's the same names that's been thrown out for the last year or more. The same names. I don't really bring this forth because the mainstream media, they don't talk about any of this. They don't talk about those names that we all know. They don't talk about WSU Karen. They don't talk about the person that saw allegedly Dylan in the backyard at 8:15, 8:30 with 4 others. They don't talk about any of that. It's like we have the PCA case, and then we have some alternative set of facts, information, eyewitnesses, like the real evidence, what really happened, the videos. Like, what's on that video at 1112 King Road? And I know I'm going off into like these different areas, but we're having a conversation. And I just have to be very honest with you. I'm not going to lie to you. This PCA, I don't know who made this up. I don't know if I don't want to say fabricated, but a lot of it doesn't make sense. And I've been saying it. I've done countless video after video after video. And I would hate to even think in my heart and my mind that they would set someone up, that law enforcement or this community or very strong, powerful people would set someone up for a quadruple homicide that they weren't involved in. I don't know the truth. I am not God. I don't see all things. I wasn't there. But when I tell you there is a whole alternative set of information, evidence, witnesses, and there's another story, and it has nothing to do factually with this PCA. So Chick Bait says you have to keep facts separate from the speculation and theories. I know, and that's why I don't talk about it as much. I do wonder who was always at the house and why they aren't naming them in the PCA. It's strange to me. I know that Chief Fry, when he had some of the initial press conferences and he was asked about who was in the house, I'm not going to say he was lying, but it appeared that he didn't know who was in the house, or he wasn't willing to state that, as well as who called 911, things like that. All of that is going to come out at the trial, if there is a trial. And my common sense tells me, with a house full of female roommates and they were having parties, and this was a big night on campus. There was no one in the house. No one brought anybody home. No one had any friends. I don't know. Use your common sense, and you think about it. But I want to share my page about District Judge Steve Hippler and let you know some information about him. Then I'll wrap this video up. So I just wanted to show you a little image of Judge Steve Hippler. This is him on the bench. And then I want to also, I'm going to close this one out. So I had gone over to the Latah County website to learn just a little bit of information about Judge Hippler. So, and all of these links are shared on the Hidden Horror Facebook page, and I will make a little announcement once I'm done. But Judge Stephen Hippler, he's an administrative district judge in Latah County. He's for the 4th Judicial District, which encompasses Ada, Boise, Elmer, and Valley counties. In addition to his administrative duties, he is a district judge for Latah County, where he handles felony cases and civil cases exceeding $10,000. So that's what they had about him. I won't go into like any LinkedIn or any other accounts. I'll keep it simple. And we can learn him as we watch him, right? We can learn about him. We can see how he handles the case, and we'll be able to figure that out, fairly quickly as we watch how he handles the case and his courtroom decorum. So I'm sure I'll be back to bring you some more updates on that. But again, I want to say I do have those 3 videos coming up. I'm putting Kaylee and Maddie together for a reason, because it again supports what I've already said, which is there's definitely possibly other likely suspects or other suspect, but it's going to support what I've already did my series on, which was, is it possible that a law enforcement officer killed Idaho 4? And then I'm putting Ethan and Zana together because where were they between the hours of 9 p.m. and about 2 a.m.? I've heard some contradictory things and things like that, so I want to explore that more. I still don't know where they are that night, even though, as I've reported in other videos, I did see a video of Ethan and Zana going into a building or apartment, like it appeared to be like on Linda Lane. I'm not sure, but how it was like story, like 2 stories, and they were walking from like a parking lot, like what I've seen in the Linda Lane footage, for example, and they went into like an apartment on the 1st floor. So I want to know, where were they? Where were they? What were their whereabouts? And how was that determined? Was that determined from tracking them, looking at their cell phone data, the usage on their phone? Are there any pictures or video? That's important to figure out where they were. And that's especially important for time of death because one thing that I do want to explore more is, and someone told me in the past video, there was some autopsies that were done um, for the victims and toxicology screens. So we will find out more about that when the case goes to trial, if it goes to trial. Because I do want to know were there any substances in the toxicology screen for any of the victims. I want to know that and more. I have a lot of questions. And then, of course, I'm doing a video. In one of my last few videos, there was a witness that saw Dylan Mortensen in at the 1122 King Row House outside about 8:15 a.m. on Sunday, November 13th. And I want to talk about that more. I want to talk about what the witness saw. And they saw an additional person with Mrs. Mortensen, and that person's name is Emma. So when I did a little research on Emma, and this has all been out in other platforms for a long time, but I've never talked about Emma. I'm going to start talking about Emma and some of the information that is attached to her, linked to her. So, um, that is to come. But what I did want to say before I go is I want to thank my Facebook, my YouTube, and my X community. X let me know this week that I have been on their platform for 1 year. And then on YouTube, I have 250 plus videos now. I just got over 250 videos. And I want you guys to know I really enjoy doing the videos. I enjoy sharing any knowledge, educational resources, any way to keep us safe, and also to discuss the criminal aspect of cases and kind of investigate these cases in more detail and some of the psychology, the mindset of criminals. So it's important to me. I hope that you like the platforms. Um, if you can follow me on the platforms or subscribe to my platforms and share the videos if you're enjoying the content, please do so. It helps my channel to grow, and more particularly with Facebook, I need 100 followers. I believe I'm at about 25 because the first year or so, I didn't ask for anybody to subscribe. I was just sharing the knowledge because I think it's important, particularly in the areas of crime where people may not be aware, or, I can share some of these safety ideas in a structured way. So, if there's like a advisory about travel, for example, or some safety stuff, or some recent crime sprees, I can share that with you. I can mention now also that I'm going to do some parts about mass shootings because that's something that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And the U.S. Secret Service, they have done some research, and they have gathered some information that I'm going to share, and I'm going to do in parts because their data is really large, but I want to share more details because I do have videos on mass shooters, and I said, you know what, maybe I need to do like a separate informative piece about the safety behind this. That is the goal. The focus is to keep us safe, to protect us, to prevent crime. And I can share that information while also using my platform to talk about the mass shooters and uncover, why are we having all these mass shooters? What is the mindset of these shooters? What was their childhood like? How did they grow up? When they were developing, what were their experiences? What were their social interactions and things like that? So I think I can do both. I can talk about these mass shootings. I can uphold justice for the victims while also informing you about some of what we have learned over these decades with these mass shootings, right? I had started a new collection called Monster on my YouTube channel where I take some of the most heinous cases, some of just the worst criminals, and I present these cases to you. I really, really want to build that out further, but I have a lot. I have a lot of cases that I'm working on at the same time in different trials and things like that. Right now, I'm not going to add any new cases because I've barely been able to check off one or two cases. So some cases are coming up for trial, and then maybe I'll be able to move some out. But I do want to build out my monster collection more, and then I'm just trying to get updates on all of the cases that I have. But some of these cases, like the cyanide case in Thailand, there hasn't been one article that I can find that's been written since that happened, and that was like July, mid to late July. So it's mid September, 2 months later, not one article. So there is definitely some challenges with some international crimes that are happening where I don't know if they're trying to bury these cases, but they're definitely not following up and providing any information for the masses to obtain online. So I'm working on it all. My goal is, and what I've always been about, is investigating crime, the forensic part of crime, the policing aspect, and the safety aspect for prevention. That's been my goal. That's what my background is in. And I've been able to use this platform to share my information. And I haven't even begun to share my experiences. I know I talked a little bit about when I was a teenager, when I was drug and rape. That was just one thing. I've had other things in life, and then also some of the things that I have been involved in. Maybe one day I will talk about them. I have to consider that. And then I have other things that I have to also consider. So we will see, I guess I will just unfold like a flower over time. So stick with your girl, hang out with me. Hopefully, these videos, they're helpful to you, or you could share them and they'll be helpful to somebody else. That is the goal. And then I have been able to solidify it for my legacy because this is something that I always wanted to do, not in this platform. I never imagined this platform, but doing the work in a way, and it brings me a lot of honor, and I'm very proud of this path that I am on. It's important to me, and I really enjoy it, and I hope that it helps you. Um, and it's a part of my dream since I was little, to do this type of stuff, not on this platform, but the criminal work, the forensic work, the investigative work. So I encourage you to follow your dreams, reach for the stars, chase them down, find a way that gives you um, the peace that you need, but also you can uh, apply that knowledge, use that knowledge um, to help somebody else. So thank you for spending this time with me. I really, really appreciate it. I want you always to stay safe, stay smart, stay savvy. I want you to be well, all my friends. Enjoy your weekend, and I will see you in a video soon. Bye, everybody. Good night.